Hello, to anyone that's listening. I have decided to do a live on a weekend, which is unusual for me to do a live on a weekend. So I thought I'd do one because a few people had asked. So those of you that don't know who I am the guy that waffles on about aliens and Bigfoots and all sorts of paranormal stuff and our ancient history. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask. I will talk about one particular subject until someone sort of asks a question, then I'll jump off of that and go back and talk about the question. So this normally goes onto YouTube as well, so I'll put this on YouTube for those of you that want to listen to the whole of it. So if anyone has any questions, obviously feel free to ask. So I will start talking about something, and I'll probably start with the Anunnaki. Now, if any of you have watched my videos already, you know who the Anunnaki are. So basically, the Anunnaki are a race that comes from another planet that's in our solar system. It's called the 12th planet. However, we call it the 9th planet because we count outwards, whereas the Anunnaki would count inwards, which makes more sense because they come from sort of the outer side as opposed to from inwards. So the Anunnaki created modern man, and that was about 300,000 years ago. So they arrived 450,000 years ago, and they created modern man 300,000 years ago using genetics, and that was with the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens the indigenous species at the time that were in South Africa, which is where. Sorry, I'm just reading the message now. The Nose 48 has wrote, "Were we put here to harvest gold after being hybridized with apes?" Spot on, absolutely yes. There's enough evidence of that. I don't know if you've watched any of my videos, but absolutely yeah. So basically, the Anunnaki were here for about 150,000 years mining for gold, and a good way of proving that is I don't know if you guys have seen, there's this particular footprint. It's about 6 foot tall, and it's in South Africa, and it's in granite. And Michael Tellinger talks about it a lot, and you can Google it. I think I've shown a couple of pictures of it on my videos. But that footprint, which is 6 foot tall, is of a humanoid. Now that is in granite. Now experts say, well, you can't have a footprint in granite because it takes millions of years to blah blah blah. But the reason why it's in this granite, and believe it or not, certain types of granite is actually used as an epoxy hardener. So just bear that in mind. So basically, the reason why that footprint's in there is because the Anunnaki was smashing up granite to take out the gold from it, and what was left was the sludge. Now, if a giant came along, trod in that sludge over a very short space of time, probably a couple of days, if not a week, that would harden back into. So it's almost like cement. So because of the Anunnaki smashing it all up, looking for gold and extracting it, they created a cement type effect, which then that giant ended up walking on, and thus the footprint. So it all makes sense. Thank you to the Nose 48 for sending a rose. Thank you. So basically we are not necessarily from apes. We were from hominids. So there was a few different types of hominids around in South Africa or Africa at that time. There was about 4 or 5. I think there's 4, but I might be wrong. There might have been a 5th one, because each day mainstream keeps coming up with different things that they keep finding. So yes, we was genetically modified, which is why we have 46 chromosomes instead of 48. 2 of them are physically fused. Now, you could Google fused chromosomes in animals, and you'll get people talking about it, but no one actually says which specific animal. They'll just say, yeah, they're in animals. Okay, show me one. Which animal? But there's no talk of an animal. So I think that is more of a debunking side of it, where as if you watch my videos, you realise that people like the Rockefellers debunk things. So, so basically, the answer is yes. We are descendants of the Anunnaki and hybrids. But later on, if you bear that in mind, so that was the first Adam and Eve, where they took the rib from the first human or Homo sapiens sapien that they managed to create successfully. They did try apparently a lot. They finally created the first one. They took the rib to help create a female version so that they could procreate, so that they could get workers. Because prior to that, they were using Ninshurag's womb, and she was one of the goddesses. So that the last thing they want to do is create hundreds of thousands of humans using her womb. So they needed the humans to procreate, which is what they did. So, but then 100, so that was 300,000 years ago, which matches mainstream's timeline as well. Then you've got about 100,000 years ago, give or take, the Anunnaki then had relationships with the humans that they created, which then created another Adam and Eve, which was Enki, which was one of the gods or one of the princely seeds, if you want to call it that. He had relationships with one of these, or two of these, in fact, human women that they'd created 200,000 years prior. Obviously, the women didn't live 200,000 years, but their ancestors obviously did. But then from there, those two women had children, which were offspring of the Anunnaki, Enkis, and they were Adapa and I've forgotten the woman's name, but Adam and Eve basically, and then they had children, which was Cain, Abel, Seth. So you've got two lots of Adam and Eve, which makes a lot of sense, which is why you've got the European Adam and Eve, which was in Mesopotamia, and then you've got the Adam and Eve, which was the first ones, which was in Africa, which all absolutely makes sense. So hopefully that kind of answers your question, the next question you wrote, which was, or are we half angel Anunnaki? So yes, you're right. Angels is just another word for an Anunnaki that is either a guard or military or a police type person, and that's why you've got the fallen angels, which were not really, the word's not, shouldn't really be fallen, but it's sort of disowned or some word like that, where they shouldn't have done what they did. Those particular angels, which weren't really angels, they were just Anunnaki people in particular jobs. So yes, some of us are genetically from the Anunnaki, and that's possibly the RH negative side of it. I would go along with slightly, and then you've got the other people that were offspring of the first humans, and the first humans that ended up also having relationships with the hominids that's there at the time. So that's why we've got a huge diverse thing. But I think there's about 10 Homo sapiens sapiens species left on Earth now, and that includes Polynesians, Chinese, Indians, blacks, whites, etc. That's my take on it. 111 has wrote monkey evolution theory is flawed, and you're absolutely right, it is. But technically no, to a point, because the monkeys did, or something did evolve into the hominids. My problem, and I'm guessing yours is the same, is if monkeys were the ones that evolved, why have we still got monkeys? Because they obviously didn't evolve. So why have we still got monkeys when they evolved billions of years ago? They wouldn't still have these same monkeys. They would have evolved somewhat, I would have thought. So yeah, but evolution doesn't mean it's not right, because we can see that in fish where they come out of water and they ended up with gills, and the ability to actually breathe oxygen. These little rock pool fish that have to switch from one rock to another, one pool to another, and they have evolved over time. So evolution is right. It's just the missing link part, which is where humans fit in. That doesn't fit with the apes and everything else, because the Anunnaki fused us and created us as a DNA thing. So yeah, unfortunately, the monkey evolution, you're right, is not right, so to speak. Van Jar Bell has wrote Hollow Earth, Richard E. Bird. So, okay, the Hollow Earth. There's many different names for it, Agatha and Shambhala, and the story goes that there's an inner Earth. Now, when we say inner Earth, we're not really talking about the center of the Earth. We're talking about deep down. See, my thoughts that how the planets are formed is basically loads of rocks hitting each other and sticking to each other over millions of years or billions of years, and leaves huge gaps or chasms or caves under the ground. And supposedly, Antarctica had these underground lush green area, and Admiral Byrd, who was famous actually, he's back then in the 40s, flew over Antarctica and got tractor beamed into one of these openings and was told not to come back here because he realised that there was aliens there along with Nazis. And of course, the first thing he does is go back to the president and whatever else and said, "Listen, there's aliens there. Let's go back." So they took a whole armada, ships and everything. Now, I do believe this story because Admiral Byrd had actually gone to South Pole and North Pole, documented proof. And when he went back, there is actual footage. You can see it on YouTube. There is actual footage of the expedition. They called it an expedition to Antarctica, but they took planes, they took tanks on these ships. Tanks, an expedition. You would only go with tanks if you think you was going to need a tank. You don't take tanks for the fun of it. So, there was definitely a reason that they went there, and unfortunately, they came out worse in a fight. Lots of casualties, and eventually Admiral Byrd came back with his tail between his legs. And the story goes that he wrote about this in his diary, which later on was found, and so that's how we know kind of the story. But also, a bit later on, a year or two, 3 after that, the Nazis in their UFOs, because they had built or was given technology to build these UFOs, came flying over Los Angeles. And I don't know if you guys have heard of the Battle of LA or Los Angeles. And there's a famous photograph of it that was taken for the papers, of these spotlights being pointed up at this craft in the sky, and it was being shot at, by military, all in different locations, all trying to shoot this craft down. But apparently that was one of the Nazi crafts that came from Antarctica to say to America, "Listen, do not try and send any more, craft or ships here again. Otherwise, because we can fly over here, we can sit above your Los Angeles, and we could probably destroy you if we wanted to." So, that's the Hollow Earth and Richard Byrd. Just scrolling down. 111 has wrote, "The physical doesn't matter, it's consciousness." It matters to us. I'm not sure if you're referring to someone else, but it matters to us while we're here. But yes, consciousness, which is a spirit, which is an entity, is pretty much all that matters in the end. We're just containers, as we have been told many a time by aliens and the like. Just scrolling down. Anunnaki before Sumerians, Van Jar Bell has wrote. Yeah, well, technically they were. Yeah, obviously. They landed in Mesopotamia and eventually it was called Sumeria. But prior to that, it wasn't called Sumeria because no one lived there, or no humans were there to be able to write languages, etc. So the first language that's in Sumeria, which is the cuneiform writings, which is their own language. That's the Anunnaki's original language, but over time it changed. You got to remember they were here for at least 300,000 to 400,000 years, and that's because of their lifespan that they had compared to themselves on their own planet. In fact, I've done a couple of videos which hasn't been released yet on I can't try and remember the name of it. I can't remember the name of it, but you know the story of the cup. You drink from the cup or fountain of youth, and you get eternal life. Exala, had it a minute ago. It's gone, got out of my head. But yeah, so the Anunnaki used to apparently drink this liquid that would keep them, younger for longer. But apparently, because they were here on Earth, their lifespan was a lot shorter than it would have been on their own planet. In other words, they were dying a lot quicker because of being closer to our sun, etc. So all interesting stuff, but these videos are coming out, so if you're interested, keep watching my videos. Rodney has wrote, just got here, what about the Anunnaki? I'm very interested. Try and ask a specific question if you can, because I could waffle on about the Anunnaki and you might have wanted to know more about Enlil, or you might want to know more about something else. So if you could let me know what specifically you're after. 111 has wrote 99% of light is invisible, asking the wrong question. Yes, I don't know if people realise how this is apparently, I can't say for sure, but there's a spectrum of light, and if we was to use this spectrum, I'm going back now years when I researched this, but basically the visible light that we can see, if you put all the light spectrums together and each one was a foot high, going all the way to the moon, that's how many different visual spectrums or spectrum of light there is, apparently. From here at a foot high, that's how many there is. And ours, our visual light spectrum that we can see was like 12 foot or something like that. So absolutely mind-blowing if that's true, how much we can't see. We've got infrared, we've got sonar, radar. These are all still light frequencies, even though we can't physically say that they're light because they're not producing light, but these are still frequencies. Even apparently microwaves still even though we think that as a sound or some other type of frequency, is still classed as a light frequency. So what we know is minuscule compared to what's out there in a big wide world. Someone sent me a +1 or something. Thank you for that. Sometimes I don't look at the messages and hearts and everything, so if I do miss someone sending me something, I apologise there. Let's go. Jan's wrote, let's go more angels in the darkest hour. Let go more angels in the darkest hour. Sorry, not sure what you're referring to there. Do you mean angels as in the Anunnaki angels, which were just Anunnaki really, but that has a job? Okay, Adams wrote, what are ghosts? So, okay, very briefly then, ghosts are, it starts off, there's this we call it spirit, but it's an entity, a light entity, just as I was talking about lights. There's a light entity that is living, obviously not in our spectrum of light, but it's living, and it connects with all the other light entities. So basically there's thousands and millions all over the planet, all over the universe, and these entities have at least, I've counted at least 6 that can come off of one. So if you imagine a drop of water, you split that drop of water into 6. So they're your soul group. So I know people used to say, oh well, it's your loved one. No, it's a soul group, and that soul group is there to learn. So the soul group could be your parent, could be someone you meet along the way, someone like that. But basically, a ghost is one of these entities that joins with you 3 to 4 months before you're born. So while you're in your mother's womb, joins with your pineal gland. It sticks with you for the rest of your life until you die. Now, you could have a near-death experience, and then that entity leaves you, but you may come back to life. You may be resuscitated, and then another spirit or another entity joins with you, and that's how people end up with the ability to play music they couldn't do before, etc., etc. But basically, when you die, let's forget the near death for a moment. When you die, that entity that's now been with you learning, that's all it's doing, it's learning. There's no good or bad, it's just learning. When that leaves you, it's now crossed over, so we call it crossover, and that's on another plane that we can't see, but they're still here. They can be sitting right next to you. Now, the person that died can manifest themselves back into when they were younger. So in other words, instead of them being a cripple now, for example, as they may have died as a cripple, they portray themselves in their very best form. So the spirit holds everything that you had. It learned. It's like basically a hard drive. It's a copy of you. And then when that spirit is finished here, whether it gets told to go to the light or whatever, then it crosses over again. And when it crosses over again, that's pretty much it. You or the person that's with that spirit sort of gets now pushed back. That then spirit goes back in front of a council of aliens, which is where you make your sort of contract, as they used to say, with God. But you make a contract, the spirit does, and says, right, okay, I'm ready. And they'll say, okay, we've got another person for you. This one's gonna die at the age of 35, but before that you'll learn X, Y, and Z, and this is your mission in life. And so that spirit then says, okay, bang, straight back into another reincarnation, another person. So the person before now gets pushed back, but obviously you can bring those back in past life regressions to find out. So hopefully that explains what a ghost is. So it's not you as such, it's an entity that joins with you, and it's just eternal. It just keeps going round and round. So yeah, that's where it is. Do you think Jimmy's wrote? Do you think Corey Good is legit or just lying for attention? So those of you that don't know, Corey Good is a person that supposedly worked for the Space Force for at least 20 years. And when I say Space Force, I mean Space Force, where he's met different types of aliens, worked on missions, etc. For the US Space Force. And after his 20 years tour, he then gets regressed. Not regressed, he gets de-aged by taking his soul out of his body, which is what a spirit, which is what I was just talking about, the hard drive copy, and put into a cloned version of him that was 20 years younger. So in other words, he does 20 years tour, and then they put him back, his soul back, or spirit, whatever you want to call it, back into a younger version of him, and then he gets sent back in time to prior to 50, I think it's about 15 minutes after he left first. So they normally take him when they're asleep, so he'll be put back in bed 15 minutes, and that's the story. Now Corey's come out and remembered a lot of this, and he's gone to hypnotists, etc., and they so his stories are very interesting. Now he's not the only person to say this. There's a few other people that have come out and said the same things. Other people who worked on Space Force missions. So going back to, do I think he's lying just for attention? The problem is I struggle because I've been doing this for 30 years, just research, and he said things that I'd never heard of before. So I'm not saying he's wrong, but he was one of the people that brought up the Sphere Being Alliance, which I'd never heard of before until he came along. So once you see, I like to have at least a handful of people corroborate a story before I can definitely say that okay, they're on the right track. But he's come out with things like the Blue Avians as well, and things like that. That yes, since then I've heard about them, but are other people just copying him for the sake of it? Then the argument is, how is he being allowed to say these things if he's, if this is true, if everything he says is true? How the hell can the government, or the military be allowing him to come to say these things? And apparently, as with the other people that are also coming out, some of their superiors are allowing them to say this to help part of the disclosure of what's going on. And there are groups out there. I don't know if you guys have heard Tom DeLonge, Reach for the Stars, I think it was called, or Academy for the Stars. He's also teamed up with a few supposed whistleblowers that are in high positions. So I'm still out on Corey. Emery Smith, thank you for whoever sent that thing that just flashed in front of me. Emery Smith, I'm a little bit more hesitant on, and there's another. Oh, it's a cup of tea or something. Thank you for that. So I don't know on Corey. I'm still out on him. The logic on what he says is sound. You know, they do have that technology to be able to time travel. They do have that technology to clone a body at a younger age. So everything that he says makes sense to the things that I've heard, but then there's the things that I've not heard. Okay, so just scrolling on now. Van J. Belt, Endan make giants people. Okay, he's not quite sure what that means, but so basically when the Anunnaki had relationships with the humans, that's when you had the Nephilim or the Watchers, which were the giants of old. And those giants are the ones that I was just, if you was listening in about the footprint, that would have been one of those giants. But they weren't all giants. Not all of them suddenly ended up being as tall as what they say, which some say are a mile high. Some people on my chats are saying even higher than that. One person said, I think he said 70 something miles high, which would have been ridiculous because their head would have been in our atmosphere. But certainly there were. I think there was trees. Jans wrote, "Are you from England or you're from England?" Yes, I am. Rodney, not sure how the Aethia may connect, but also very interesting. Sorry, I'm not sure what that meant there. High Five wrote, "It wasn't monkeys, it's moles." I'm guessing you're referring to our evolution, so to speak. Not sure if it was moles, but that's interesting. Flamingo, hi there. Don't forget, happy Sunday from Texas. So Flamingo seems to be haunting me. No, I'm joking. Every time I'm doing a live, Flamingo manages to catch me. Do you not have anything else to do other than TikTok? But no, I do appreciate it because there's times where I've just waffled on and I really needed a drink, and I'm guessing Flamingo could tell that. So thank you. Just scrolling down. Rodney's wrote, I read it was the Neanderthal. So yeah, so if that's what you're referring to, where the Anunnaki had created the first Homo sapiens sapiens, yeah, I've also read it was Neanderthal. But there is enough evidence to show enough. I mean, if you watch my videos where the skulls that they've been finding that are sort of half, more human or more Homo sapiens sapien, but not Neanderthal. So there's enough evidence to say that they experimented on different hominids at the time. But I think we probably did end up, they probably worked best with the Neanderthals. Bearded wrote, it does work. The more discoveries that are made, they always slot into the hominid timelines. It does work. Sorry, I'm a bit behind on the questions now, so apologies if I'm trying to now work out what you're referring to exactly. So I'll just pass on that, forgive me. ACW's wrote, I've sussed it. We are Sterope, which is apex of triangle cluster of the Pleiadian star system. I'm guessing you just want to write there. The Pleiadians, I mean, yes, there's a race out there that we call the Pleiadians. I don't think we're from there. There's the beauty of the stone tablets, the oldest stone tablets that we find, and not just that, but obviously the papyrus and Hebrew and Aramaic, etc. All those writings do pinpoint it down to the Anunnaki again. So I don't think we come from another planet. I think we are. 93 Gord has wrote, the North Pole is Canadian territory. That's interesting because they originally, well, I mean, I can't say for sure. I mean, I'll take your word for it, but I thought that North and South Pole were the only continents that weren't owned by anyone. That's, Van J. Bells wrote Machu Picchu. Yes. Hopefully you guys all have heard of Machu Picchu. Absolutely fascinating place. I would love to go there. I don't know if any of you guys have. The most important thing for me is the blocks, how they fitted the blocks in to each other. Um, unlike the pyramid, unlike the Great Pyramid, for example, which were just sort of almost placed on top of each other. Machu Picchu, these blocks have right angles in them. Absolutely phenomenal. But that's not just the only place that has that. You've got places in Lebanon, etc. Now, I think that those stones were heated. Um, Now, there's a place in Scotland that also has these type of stones where they were literally melted and then petrified. And to petrify something, so even living tissue, you can use, for example, lightning, which I didn't know about until fairly recently. So the Scotland one sort of gives the game away because they tried to recreate this wall that was there in Scotland that seems to be similar to the way that the Machu Picchu walls were built, and they tried to set fires, and they did it for days and days and days, and of course they couldn't get this stone to match the stone that was there. So the only conclusion they had was it was absolutely superheated by something, whether it was a microwave or whatever, some device, but certainly not normal fire. So the Machu Picchu stones, that's what I find most fascinating. I mean, I could waffle on about the people and everything else, but the stones, once you realise that you can't, with normal fire, you can't make stones like that. I mean, they mould into each other. They're not chiselled out. They literally just mould into it, which is fascinating. So sorry. I'm just scrolling on. Hi there, Facto. Facto's back. Hey. Why is there no solid photos of aliens? Very good question. Supposedly there are. Obviously, the military have pictures of aliens. I wouldn't count the videos that you see online of aliens where it's, looks like it's. There's always a dark background in them. Watch my videos and I explain why a lot of those videos seem to be faked, because I have a sort of filming background as well, so I can sort of spot that why they would have done, filmed it in that way. But going back to why there are no pictures of aliens, Billy Meyer, I don't know if you've heard of Billy Meyer. Supposedly he's taken pictures of aliens, of the Pleiadians, and the problem is people said, oh well, they look like, one of the women looks like some actress off of TV. So even when you've got possibly proof, people ain't going to believe you. He's got these photographs, and this is going back. I think he's probably in his 80s now. This is going back, 50 years ago. He was taking pictures of these craft that they were allowing him to take because they were in contact with him. And these are phenomenal photographs of these saucer-shaped craft. And back then he only had one arm, so he would have had to get someone else to take these pictures. He would have had to, at least needed help to fake these pictures because there was no Photoshop back then. So basically, if there is pictures out there, I mean, Linda Moulton Howe's got a couple of pictures that she's put on her videos, etc., of little greys. Of course, skeptics will say they're not real. So even when you've got real pictures, the problem is people try and debunk them. So, but going back to another reason why, obviously the military don't want you to, and that's back in the day when people used to take pictures. You'd get the Men in Black turn up, which was there's two types of Men in Black, but the military Men in Black would want to know if you took any pictures, and if you did, they would threaten. The story goes that they threaten everyone except you. They'll say, your mum, your dad, your dog, your kid, everyone else will be harmed except for you. If you've got pictures of aliens, there's other stories where people went into, bought a house, and up in the attic, they're going through this, whoever the previous tenants was, and they came across loads of military photographs, and then 2 or 3 of them were actually of grey aliens, and they contacted MUFON and so on. So there's pictures out there, but people will just debunk them, or the military won't. They'll make sure you look like an idiot. And back in the day, there used to be these newspaper articles on, I've seen an alien and things like that, and they've taken pictures. But the newspaper then says, oh, this is because, and they'll make the person seem stupid, and that was their agenda. Because the newspapers, if you've learned anything over the last 2 years, you'll realise the newspapers have an agenda, and aliens isn't one of them, because it's all part of the big scheme of things that they're doing. So, but there's lots of real photographs of craft for sure, but the aliens is obviously harder because they've got to get out of the craft and physically be near you to be able to take a picture of. I'm just reading down. Tutankhamun, Jans wrote, Tutankhamun is a great king of Egypt, but I think he was not human. Correct, yeah. So a year ago, I don't know if you saw this, BBC did a programme, and it was to uncover Tutankhamun. I think it was in, not the British Museum, but I think it was in a museum in the UK. And the BBC was there filming it while they unbandaged Tutankhamun's head. And I knew this was going to happen. I knew he had an elongated head, and lo and behold, bang, elongated head. And do you think they even mentioned that? Hell no. That's the last thing they want to do, because Tutankhamun is the son of Nefertiti, who had an elongated head, and Akhenaten, who had an elongated head. These were not human. They were more Anunnaki human than they were human. So yeah, the BBC certainly didn't want to point out that elongated head. But anyone that knows about the elongated head knows the Anunnaki had them. Factos wrote, "How's your peers? How's you peers? Oh, sorry. Some people think I'm Piers Morgan. Yeah, I pray to God I'm not him. You can tell I'm not him because I say sorry a lot, and I don't think he's ever said sorry. 111 has wrote, search Stephen Greer, Disclosure Project. Yes, he did it back in 2002, I think it was. So that's to help you find. I think that's referring to the person that was sort of saying about photographs of aliens. I don't recall them having any photographs of actual aliens, but they had a hell of a lot of evidence. That's on YouTube if anyone's interested. It's called the Disclosure Project by Stephen Greer. He's a doctor, proper doctor, that's pretty much given up that by the sounds of it now, and he's totally doing alien stuff. The real something has wrote, do you think the people that run the world are alien? I think there's a race above our elites. Yeah, I think whether it's what I call the fallen angels that was left here, because the Anunnaki, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Anunnaki couldn't actually go back to their own planet. I only found this out fairly recently, and the reason why they couldn't go back to their own planet is because of the orbit of Earth around our sun was causing them to age a lot quicker. They did have elixir, got it, finally remember the name of it, which they would drink to help their longevity of life, but that was only available on Nibiru. So anyway, basically they were, if they went back to Nibiru, they would die pretty much within a couple of their days. So they lived their life out. Now, that means the fallen angels, the ones that were dishonored by or disowned by the Anunnaki, the angels, the military people or whatever, that means they also stayed here. So are they the ones that created, not created, but are they the ones that had the knowledge that ended up passing down to people like the Illuminati, etc.? That's totally possible. Now I know you've got other races out there that are supposedly in charge of the military, supposedly in charge of the elites, such as the reptilians and the archons and so on. But I think they're in something's up there, and for our elites to be worshipping serpents and offering sacrifices. These are world leaders dressing up in freaking robes, worshipping some sort of serpent. And this is not me making this up. This is a true thing. For them to be doing that means that they are into something, and if they're into something, then chances are that it is to do with another race telling them what to do. So, like I say, I heard 20 years ago an abduct. Was it an abduct? I can't remember if it was an abductee or a contactee, but basically they were told by the Greys, and I'm not sure which Greys because back then I didn't realise there was more than one type of Grey, but they were told that our planet should have really only had 500 million people on it. Roll forward to the Georgia Guidestones that say the same. So, and everything that's happening now, that you can probably all guess what's going on. So when you put all of that together, how did the aliens know what we were supposed to have on our planet, and how is it that Georgia Guidestones have now got it written down in stone, and what's going to happen in the future with everything? And I mean, Bill Gates has pretty much explained it many a times on videos you can watch where he talks about something. I'm not going to mention the name of it because it's very sad, but where we don't all end up being here anymore. So yeah, so I do think there's probably some race in charge of them. Ernie's wrote, do you have any photos of aliens? No, I don't, I'm afraid. Seven Clues sent me something times one. Thank you, whatever that is. Writers wrote, I'm one of the Anunnaki, but I'm doing my best to help humans. Good luck with that. I think the best way to help humans is to get rid of the people that's trying to get rid of the humans. And when I say the people that's trying to get rid of the humans, I think we all know there's a certain group of people that's trying to get rid of the humans, or trying to reduce the humans population anyway. Factors back, we're all energy, and when we die our energy is released back into the world. I mean, in simplistic terms, everything is energy, yes. But I think the spirits that leave us are sort of, I mean, as I say before, talking about the spirits, the little greys have called us containers. We're nothing. We're just, a blip in the ocean of time, but we're a container for this entity. So, we're nothing to them. Just scrolling down. 111's wrote, Disclosure Project has photos of aliens. Okay, if it does, I say I couldn't remember. It's been a long time since I watched a whole version of the Disclosure Project. So forgive me if there is. I wasn't sure. People talking to people, just reading through. Sorry, a couple of people talking to each other. Sorry, talking amongst yourselves. Dano's wrote, tell me 3 countries. I'm sorry, I'm so far behind on messages, I'm not sure. So if I am so far behind on messages and you ask the question, try and sort of be a tiny little bit more specific. Mother sent me some tea, it says here. Mother, thank you. Mother, two lots of tea. Thank you. That's probably because I'm dehydrated. I can't read that word, sorry. Someone's wrote something I can't read. Jerk Chickens wrote, is blood type a sign of what type you are? You mean as regards to... Yeah, I think... obviously, you got to remember, people's now, we're talking, since the Anunnaki had relationships with the humans, that's 100,000 years ago. So you got to remember, there's a hell of a lot of inbreeding between ourselves and them and the humans and the Denisovans and the Homo florensis and the Neanderthals and everyone. They all seem to get on the action. One big fun time. But so, there's people out there now that may have Rh negative, where I would say that's predominantly would have come from the Anunnaki, simply because that there's no other blood type out there that kills, in any species that would cause a baby to die. So, and that probably would explain why the Anunnaki, when they first created the first humans 300,000 years ago, would have needed to do it as a DNA thing, as opposed to having relationships with the Neanderthals there. But obviously, as 200,000 years passed, and because their DNA was in the Homo sapiens sapiens, they could have relationships with those Homo sapiens sapiens. But obviously, there was some issues, which was the Nephilim, which caused some sort of giantism effect. And I mean, really giantism, massive. So it's kind of watered down, but I think the Rh negative would have been the Anunnaki. It just makes more sense than them being the Neanderthals. So yeah, so you can kind of guess. But as regards to the other types, the O negatives and all this kind of stuff, you would need. I'm not an expert on this. You'd need to look back and see what mainstream say, what part of the world they come from. So obviously, if it come from Africa, for example, then you could sort of say, okay, well, I'm probably one of the first. Obviously, there's been a lot of inbreeding and everything else and mixing, but you could sort of say, okay, my blood type would have been from there, or my blood type would have been from, Mesopotamia or China, or because there was hominids in China, etc. So when the Anunnaki moved around, and not only the Anunnaki, but when people moved around, humans moved around, they again bred with those different types of hominids in those different locations. So you can kind of tell where you're from, I think, if you look at. Okay, Mothers wrote, hello, you're welcome. That's for the tea, I'm guessing. Thank you very much. My TikTok channel discusses Rh negative topics. I'd love to do a live with you. You're more than welcome. I would love to do that as well. Send me a message on any of my videos and just say, hi, it's Mother. And I'll add you as a friend if that's okay, if we're not already classed as friends. Then we can chat privately. That'd be great, thank you. Mothers wrote, yes, Rh positive and negative are different and have different characteristics. Yes, I'm sure you probably know far more than me. I'm just going on the lines of where I think it comes from, but obviously you probably know far more about the actual what the blood does, etc. Hello from the US, Lil E1 has wrote. Mother sent me another cup of tea, thank you. Rodney's put some coordinates. I'm not sure what they're for. Are you spiritual? Sketchers asked. No. Okay. When you say spiritual, I believe in an afterlife, and that's the afterlife with the spirits. Totally believe that. Did a Ouija board, and there was only two people, me and my mum, and she didn't move it, and I asked the questions in my head, and it moved to the correct answer. So I have to believe there is definitely the spirits now. And when I say spirits, the entities that were joined with the people before they passed. So that spirit on that side, yes, but an almighty being that created heaven and earth and all that stuff, not so much. There's probably a creation, and I mean, aliens talk about creation, and they also talk about the source. So they don't really talk about a god. We call gods, and the Anunnaki technically were called the Elohim. That's their race name. Of course, we associated that with God. So, and the ancient text sort of puts it into perspective, where the Anunnakis wrote in their Sumerian tablets that on the first day that they arrived, they catalogued, the plants. The second day, they catalogued animals, insects. The fourth day, fifth day, and on the seventh day, they rested. So straight away, once you forget the Bible and you realise that the Bible's a copy of these, thousands of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years older texts, once you realise that, and that the Anunnaki landed here, and that's exactly what they said, then you can put, and I hate people. I hate to think that I'm upsetting people about God, but once you realise that they're the gods that we were referring to, um, then you can look outside of that. And now aliens have said that there is something bigger than them. Even the Anunnaki themselves, in their texts, have said that when they were talking about, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they mentioned a greater power. So whether that greater power is a god, another type of god, or whether it's creation, I'm on the side that it's something like the Hadron Collider. We've got a Hadron Collider, and we're trying to create this mini universe. I have a feeling that another race out there probably done that and created a universe, and we're probably in that little universe. I'm not saying that they're giants. I'm just saying that that's quantum physics means we could be in this tiny little universe somewhere else in someone's lab. As for spirits, yes, real God, man in a white beard. Anunnaki actually had a white beard. That's where they got it from. But no to sort of one almighty being that created heaven and earth in 7 days, because it's just written by the Anunnaki that it wasn't that. Mothers wrote, you can donate blood. This is to do with the Rh negative. They'll screen it. You can also get a test from your doctor that you can order a test kit online. Yeah, so anyone that has Rh negative, my ex-wife had Rh negative, and back then I didn't know as much as I know now, and but yeah, I had to have a test as well to make sure our kids come out all right. How many different species? How many different species of aliens, or how many different species of humans? Aliens, there's thousands apparently. We don't know them all. This is obviously hearsay from people that say that they have been like Corey Good, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they was in a. I don't know if you guys remember the Star Wars, one of the prequels, where they was in a chamber, I don't know, a courtroom setting, but it was a massive thing with loads of, and all different aliens were all sitting around, and there was a stage at the front. Apparently, it's similar to that, and there was all sorts of aliens there. There was giants, there was tiny little people, there was bird-type ones, reptilians. So apparently, if you believe everything they say, but military-wise, back in when Reagan was first ushered in, they had a briefing with him, and I do actually believe that the information that's out online now, you can go and look for it, the transcript of his briefing. I do actually believe that was real. They were talking about Ebens and things like that, which who if it's not real, someone wrote that really is very, very clued up. More clued up than I am. So to write that and just stick it on the internet and not take credit for it would be a real shame, because whoever done it. So I think that documentation, where they're explaining to Reagan how many races that they're aware of, and that was back in the 80s. Now, I've heard, say 10 years ago, they were saying that they can definitely count 56 races of aliens that they're aware of. And of course, then you've got people like Corey Good that says, thousands. So hopefully that sort of answered your question. Factos wrote, we are from Earth, human. They're extra lands, extra territory, extraterrestrial. Mothers wrote, very welcome. Factors wrote, and they're hiding these lands from us. Google Admiral Bird. So what Facto's trying to say is, Admiral Bird in a couple of interviews have said that now if you was listening right from the get go, you know who Admiral Bird is. If you don't, he was someone that went to both North and South Pole as well as Inner Earth. But he, in a couple of interviews, and you can actually watch them online in black and white, he says that the Antarctica still has green lush grass there hidden we're not allowed to see it, but he's flown over it. So now mainstream have agreed that at some point or another, the Antarctica was a lush green, swampy, stroke desert, not desert, stroke forest area, and for whatever reason, maybe the Earth tilted and that became, covered in ice, whereas Sahara, for example, which was underwater, is now not underwater. So, so there is possibly places. So Facto could be absolutely right. I mean, obviously they're not telling us, but there could be places out there that we still don't know. And there is a no flyover Antarctica, and a lot of people say it's because of the firmament, but it's actually to do with possibly the lands that Facto is talking about, but certainly the alien craft that's in Antarctica that they'd found buried under the ice. So and there's a lot of whistleblowers talking about that. Mothers wrote, "Have a great day, folks." I'm guessing Mothers had to shoot off, but thank you. Have you heard of the praying mantis aliens? Yes. Yep. So technically, they're supposedly one of the oldest races of aliens out there that are physical. So forget the entities that the jinn and the light beings, etc. So they are supposedly one of the oldest beings. They're one of the smartest beings, and they also are the ones that help the tall whites and the little android greys do the operations on people. So they're not bad from what I've understood. They're actually quite kind. They actually worry, have empathy, unlike some of the other species out there. So if you do come across a praying mantis, now they supposedly look like, people said that they look like a praying mantis. However, they're a lot bigger than a tiny little praying mantis. They're sort of like 8 to 10 foot tall, and that's probably them just not even standing up tall. That's probably them just crouching over. Lil has wrote, Billy Meyer, you say. Yes, have you? Meyer, yeah, Meier, I think his name is. Fascinating story. He's from Switzerland or Sweden. I can't remember exactly which one. But there's a guy that covers his, because he can't speak English. There's a guy, something Horn, Tom Horn, I think his name is. He's covered Billy Meyer's story for many years. Some of his stuff that he says, I think he probably takes a tiny little bit of a liberty and adds to it. Just reading between the lines of everything I know, but Billy Meyer's been told, he was even told that he was going to lose his arm by the Palladians. They said, look, we're going to contact you, blah blah blah. When you're such and such age, you're going to probably lose your arm, and he did lose his arm. And they are in still communication, but they're telling him stuff, and this Tom Horn, I think his name is, has wrote it all down. Things about our future as well. So do read up on Billy Meyer and look at his photographs. You'll be surprised at Meier, I think his name is. You'll be surprised. Two types of Men in Black. Yeah, so you've got the Men in Black, which are the supposedly shape-shifting. Now, they may not be shape-shifting. They may just be wearing a disguise. But so you've got an alien race of Men in Black. Now, they came first. Now, once you realise that there's a war going on outside of Earth, for Earth, then you realise why there's these different types of aliens. So you've got aliens that are trying to find out from people that's been, abducted or whatever. Aliens are trying to find out what those aliens did to those people. Then a bit later on, then Americans realised what was happening. So they thought, oh, how do we find out what those people told those people, told the Men in Black? Now, those other Men in Black, the descriptions normally go that they don't have eyebrows, they look identical to each other, they talk monosyllabic, very sort of broken English, where was you last night, what did you see, that type of thing. So then the American military then caught on, that what was happening. So they then sent men in black, just humanoids, men in black, to these people to find out what they told the other people. What when I say people, the other aliens. It got to a point where the military was thinking, oh crap, now we've got people that have seen us and another type of men in black. These people are just going to go around explaining it. So they had this device, and yes, that device in the TV show is absolutely spot on, or in the movie, with a light frequency, it can wipe your memory, and that's a fact. There is, I think it was 10 years ago, whatever it was, scientists came out and said that they have done experiments on mice where they can make the mice short-term memory disappear using a light, and so that's a fact. And we know that whatever comes out on mainstream is 40 years behind the technology of the military. So yes, they come out and they wanted to wipe people's memories, because the last thing they want to do is have these two types of men in black show up, different people. So obviously not all the times, sometimes one group of men in black would turn up where the American didn't realise, or vice versa, where the other aliens didn't realise there was an event, and sometimes you'd only get the one type of men in black. But yeah, that's how the men in black was started. Okay, sorry, maybe I should have had a drink. Boombox has wrote, Donna's wrote from Sirius. I'm now so far behind. If you've got any questions, try and pinpoint exactly what you were asked in, because I'm so far behind. Forgive me. Boomboxers wrote, so we are aliens, humans. So bottom line is, whatever way you look at it, is the missing link that, I don't know if you guys know what the missing link is, but evolution works except for the missing link. Then the missing link only is for humans. Everything else has a lineage. You can look back at crocodiles, sauropods, everything. You can look back and they've all got a lineage. You can find the skeletons of them, but you can't find the bit between Neanderthal and human, for example, and that's because we were genetically modified. So we have parts of the Anunnaki in us, regardless of whether the Anunnaki had relationships with the humans that they had created, or whether or not we are part DNA of the Anunnaki mixed with Neanderthal to create humans. Either way, yes, we weren't supposed to be here as we are now, if that makes sense. Kilotrons wrote, I heard something about men in black being androids. No, they're not. Not well, as far as I know, they're not. They're just another alien race. The story goes that they when they leave somewhere, out of a building or whatever, they just literally either get into a car or they disappear, or they walk around a corner or whatever and they just disappear. Now that I'm guessing they're beamed up to some craft or have cloaking devices or whatever, but I think they're real. I don't think they're robots. They may now be robots. Technology for everyone's moved on, and obviously, if you're living on a planet that has a different orbit to us, then their years are a lot longer than ours, and so therefore they could create something a lot quicker than us in just 1 year. But originally, the stories that I was privy to were that they were another alien race, possibly reptilian, which then you could say, okay, well, that would make sense with the shape-shifting part. I still struggle with the shape-shifting part, but then you just think back to a little caterpillar with like 100 legs, and then suddenly it becomes a butterfly with 2 legs or 4 legs. So anything's possible, I guess. Factos wrote, he is Piers. The sorry part is to make you believe he's not Piers. Yeah, no. No, I'm not Piers. I'll take his money though. I'm sure he's rich. Factos wrote, the angels are what we call the planet, 7 of them with pagan names. Okay. Donna's wrote, yes, most aliens are mind control and time travel cloning masters. Yeah. Factors wrote, Lucifer or Lucy, the Vatican have been watching them. Yeah, I'm sure you're aware that the Vatican has. Sorry, someone's saying something. Has a couple of telescopes, and Google. I won't tell you the names if you don't already know, but Google the names of the Vatican's telescopes, and you'll think, how? Why the hell? And there's a clue there with the word hell. Why the hell would they call their telescopes, and why the hell would they be looking into space? You know, the Vatican has telescopes looking into space. Why would they do that? And they can't really see God. So what benefit would there be to have these? And I mean, these are powerful telescopes. These ain't ones that are sticking out of a window. These are ones that real scientists use. So sorry, scrolling on. Donna's wrote Blue Sphere Alliance is helpful. I've not heard of Blue Sphere Alliance. I've heard of Sphere Being Alliance. I don't know if that's the same one. Kilotron's wrote, world leaders go through so much to stay in power. I would be too lazy to even come up with that plan. Maybe it was just one person that came up with that plan. I don't know. Maybe the son of someone that was in charge of population. I don't know. Maybe I'll let you guess his name. Yes, believe it or not, he was the son of one of the people that was in charge of population in the States. And now okay, I'll give you a clue. His name is Bill Gates. Yeah. So it's interesting how he ended up being the world's best doctor. If you ask Google who the world's best doctor is, Bill Gates' name comes up, which is kind of weird because he's not a doctor. Okay, just scrolling on. Does the government and world leaders know who the reincarnated gods are? Okay, when you say reincarnated gods, do you mean the spirits that's inside the Anunnaki, or do you mean the gods that? Because to me, there is no sort of reincarnated god as such. It's they were just Anunnakis. And yes, they probably had spirits connected with them, but I think those spirits would have probably moved on and joined with the next person. And I don't think they would be in any kind of power. I might be wrong. They may, the spirits may have ended up lucky enough to go back into someone with power again. Boomboxers wrote, they know because the aliens are us in the future. See, I used to think that. I did. I went through probably 10 years of believing that, working out, that little greys, for example, have 6 fingers, and we now it's more common to have 6 fingers, and we wouldn't need teeth, we wouldn't need ears so much because we cut our food and the sound we control. So I went through all of that, and then the more and more research you do, you realise no, the only aliens we would have been the greys, and they're on their own planets, and the Zetas are not us from the future, I don't think, and the other ones are little android type greys, so they're not us from the future either. So I can't sit anymore, but I used to think that. Just Donna's wrote, will they return to gather us their slaves unless we go with how divine spirit trumps all darkness? I don't think they're going to return. I mean, they have, whistleblowers have said that they have spoke to, they've seen Anunnaki with military, but I don't think they're going to return and take over us, mainly because there's a thing called a quarantine on Earth, and that stops alien races coming in and bombarding us and killing us and stuff, and that's why a lot of this is done surreptitiously or with treaties with people like Eisenhower, so the Anunnaki won't be able to come back in and just take over anymore, because there's now this quarantine that's been set up by different aliens to say that you can't go in and mess with their evolution anymore. So that's another reason why we can't use a nuke. Yes, we can test the nuclear weapons, but to actually fire a nuke, they won't allow it. Just reading. Kilotrons wrote, I'm not concerned about the politics on another planet. Are the aliens info their home? They are here. Okay. Miss has wrote, it's my birthday today. Well, I'm sure we all wish you many happy returns of the day. And you could probably got better things to do than listen to me. Joanne Butler's asked, how does it work when a parent is rhesus negative and a child is O? Talk to that woman that said she knows more about her whole TikTok channel is about rhesus negative, etc. I can only go by what I know, but obviously she knows far more than me, so it's probably best to let her explain it better than me. I'm Jay's wrote, ever since my alien abduction I've been seeing angels, maybe light beings is a better term. Common. Fairly common, yes. So you have been abducted. Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my brain now. So you've been abducted, and since you've been abducted, you now have a better ability of seeing things that you couldn't see before. Normally, that comes with near-death experiences. After a near-death, people can, I'm just using what's that guy's name? David Icke as an example, but he had a near-death experience. But the point is, yeah, normally that's the case. But I have heard of people having abductions and then coming back and being more spiritual, for sure, definitely. Seeing light beings, yeah. Sorry, I'm just moving. Getting stuck in one position. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Angels are not angels with little heart wings and stuff. They're light beings. So yeah, definitely, it's possible. Just scrolling down. Jimmy's wrote, do you believe in astrology? I don't believe in the zodiacs. Yes, I believe that they use the zodiacs, but the zodiacs for see, the problem is if the 12th planet is real, then the zodiac is all wrong. Do you see what I'm saying? Because the 12th planet will come back round, which is the Nibiru planet, and then that will change the whole of the dynamics of the Gemini and all that kind of stuff. So I believe that the ancestors used astrology, absolutely, yeah. But the part where you read in the newspaper and it says, today you're going to have a great day, I can't buy into, because of the fact that there's probably an extra planet. I mean, even we've even downgraded one of the planets as a planet, so I struggle with that part. Sorry, one sec. I'm just reading another message. One thing that keeps my belief in God, I saw something demonic one time after doing a Ouija board. See, that doesn't... Okay, so I'll read it out one more time. One thing that keeps my belief in God is I saw something demonic one time after doing a Ouija board. Okay, so there's a difference there between a spirit entity, which is a light being. Now, that could have been a jinn, or it could have been an evil person that died. And God, they're two different things. So I don't know how you could say God, because there's nothing there connecting God. That's just a spirit that's demonic one, maybe an evil one. Like imagine Bill Gates had passed, he'd come back, and I'd see him as a demonic person, spirit. But I wouldn't be able to connect him to God, because there isn't. I can't see the connection there, especially when. If you read the ancient text, that pretty much says that God's word just basically the Anunnaki, and there's no other literature about an almighty being other than the text that the Anunnaki wrote that got changed in the Bible. I'm not saying don't believe in God. I know my mum sort of believes, and it gives her comfort. So if it gives you comfort, absolutely by all means believe in it. But Okay, just scroll on. Just reading some people chatting between themselves. My battery looks like it's going to be dying, so I'm going to try and get through to these end of these questions. Do aliens have anything to do with COVID? It's a good question, actually. I laughed at the beginning there, but it's a good question. The reason why it's a good question is because the COVID, the amount of UFO activity that's being reported now, recently in recent times, has ramped right up. Now, whether or not that's got anything to do with it, I don't know, but it's very interesting. So I can't say for sure whether it has. I think, personally, I think the whole thing is a bit of a scam. We're getting figures daily by, for example, in the UK by NHS Health. And the NHS Health would be one or two people that will be giving out those figures to the um, government, and then the government release that in the newspapers. Now, if those were corrupt people, they would just say whatever they want to say, and whether or not that figures is correct. So, when you've got a system where you can't trust the governments and you can't trust one or two people, so if you go to a hospital, when they were saying that all the hospitals were overrun, I was watching videos of people going into these hospitals and they weren't overrun. So you got to think someone's lying to us at some point. So. But to do with aliens, I'm not 100% sure, but it's a good question though. All Anunnaki had a white beard, yes, except for the Aigigigi. I probably pronounced them wrong. So the Aigigigi are the younger Anunnaki, the ones that were in the ships above. Now, some people turn around and say, well, no, they were another race. They were a slave race to the Anunnaki, but they weren't, because if they were a slave race, they would have been down mining the gold. It's as simple as that. The Anunnaki wouldn't have needed to create humans, and some people then say, well, it's because they had a war with the Aigigigi, is why they created the race, the human race. But no, the Iggy is described as Anunnakis without beards, basically. So the beards obviously is some sort of stature or elders, whatever you want to call it. But I think the beards. So when you see the images of they do have actually carvings of Aegis, and they've got no beards. So, but white beards, yes, supposedly the Anunnaki were pale skinned, even though I get told off by people that want it, that say that they're different colours. But I'm just going by what I read: pale skin, blue eyes, and white hair and white beard, which would make sense because when you see the pictures of God, he's got a white beard and white hair. That would make sense to me. Kikis wrote, "Are we aliens? No, we're offspring of aliens." Cut it short. I mean, if you want to go back and listen to this, I explain in a lot more detail. How Jesse's wrote, "How do I know all this?" While you was out, Jesse, probably having fun, I was at home researching for 30 odd years. So, even when I'm going somewhere, I'll listen to someone that's knowledgeable, whether it's a podcast or whether it's coast to coast or whatever it is. So, even in the bath, I'm sticking something on. So, 30 years of, and then I also talk to, clairvoyants, mediums, spiritualists. I've talked to Nick Pope, I've talked to Michael Tellinger, I've talked to Linda Moulton Howe, I've talked to other researchers that are great at these things. So so basically 30 years of me wasting my life, and now I'm imparting it all to you guys. Just scrolling on. Just trying to find. Triple Ones wrote, "My missus looks like a praying mantis." Dear. Have you seen one of these praying mantises die? I've not seen Any promances? I won't go into what I think I've seen. I've done that on a couple of other lives. So if you're interested in any of my lives, they're all on YouTube. I think there's 43 now on YouTube of these lives, and I'll probably be doing one tomorrow at noon as well. Um, Triple One's right. Ask me about my pre-recorded lives, guys reading, questions that aren't even on here. I'm not sure what that means. Lil's right. Thank you for answering. Triple One's right. It's not live, unfortunately, just a pre-recording. I think it's probably because I'm so far behind on these messages that it looks like I'm probably not answering people's messages. But I'd like to give the best answers I can. When I listen to people talk, I don't want them to skirt over it. If I want to learn the information, I want to learn it all. I don't want to just say, oh yes, they're here, and this, that, and the other. Someone's replied to Triple One saying he's probably live on another platform. No, I'm just so far behind on these messages that I do try and read every message if I can. Granny Avox wrote, "What's the source of this information?" I'm not sure now what bit of information you're referring to. I'm so far behind. Sorry, I couldn't tell you what part you was talking to. Talking about what's the story behind the Nazca Lines? They're coming up, actually. The Nazca Lines are coming up on my videos. I'd hate to give spoilers away, but I've done a lot more research just as I did with the flood. So the flood's coming up as well. Keep watching my videos. You'll see the Nazca Lines and now what I think. So got a little bit more information on those. So forgive me for not replying now, so my battery's running dead, and kind of want people to watch the videos as well. So feel free to. Just scrolling on. Extrusions wrote Nemesis nearly here. What's your thoughts? Nemesis, are you referring to Wormwood? Nibiru? Sorry, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to there. I might have known it by a different name. DK has wrote, why would an alien race not go against those that in control of us and show us their existence? Lots of reasons. So you basically asked him what done with one of the groups of aliens, which I think were the tall whites. And in that treaty, it basically said that we're not supposed to let them know. Now, there's lots of other reasons why they don't, but there are good aliens out there that are actually trying to help us. So the Zeta Reticuli have abducted us. They've took us on ships. They've tried to explain to us what we're doing to the planet, etc., etc., and then they drop us back. But they wipe our memory to a point that we still feel the need to fix the planet. So we can't remember exactly everything that they've told us, but we have this urge now to. So that's what they've been doing in droves. In fact, the Palladians, for example, trying to get to us using telepathy. So while people are sleeping, they're trying to tell us and warn us what's going to happen in the future, etc. So there's races out there, but because of the quarantine around our planet, they can't directly interfere. And that's pretty much it. I mean, other than the bad ones that obviously don't want us to know what they're up to, such as apparently the reptilian type, the Dracos. You probably wouldn't want to know what they would do to us, food and slaves and things like that. So, creative text for aliens, demonic interdimensional beings. So, so you're saying that you think aliens are demonic, extra-dimensional beings. See, the problem I have with that is there's so many planets here. They don't have to be extra-dimensional. There are, I believe, extra-dimensional beings, and I've heard of ships, a bit like the Farscape ship, that is part alive, that can actually physically open up the dimension to be able to come through. But aliens, I don't think are all interdimensional. I think there's just enough planets out there. I mean, even Betty and Barney Hill got given by the Zetas a star map, and she redrew that in under under being hypnotized, and no one knew where that was at that point. And then later on, when we had better telescopes, a teacher worked out that it's the Zeta Reticuli star system, which is why we call them the Zetas. Originally they were called Ebens, and even a couple of different types of Ebens. But so I think there's enough evidence to say that they're from a planet here, not necessarily. And as for demonic, I've asked many of people, can they describe a demon to me? And whatever version of a demon is that you say, my demon will be different. So it's the same as monster. Describe a monster to me, and you'd I don't know, you'd say big, small, tall, whatever. So to me, a demon is just an evil whatever. So a demon could be an evil Bill Gates. A demon could be an evil dog. People say there's hell dogs, demon dogs. It's just an evil something. So when people say demonic aliens, I don't think there is a demonic alien. I just think there's probably evil aliens out there, and there's good aliens out there. But I don't think anyone can pinpoint a demon, just because for the reasons I've just said. Right? Okay. What I don't think all aliens are us in the future. That's Peter. Kilotron Wall. Would we evolve by losing a finger or gaining a finger? I would say would gain a finger, because we use our hands now a lot more than we did before. We would just, would probably be. I mean, if you look at certain tribes, they sit down, they kneel down, and they use their feet to grasp wood while they're working on it. But now, we have keyboards, and we're forever using, our little finger a lot more than we would have back in the day. So I have a feeling that we probably would evolve an extra finger and a bigger head. Have you seen any of the Iwarion Hidden History videos? No, I haven't. I will try and look them up. Not heard of that, sorry. Peach has asked, but that's probably just a repeat, but what's the story about how Nazca Lines? Have a watch of my videos. They're coming up because it's coming to the time that the Nazca Lines were actually created. These were after the flood, so in my opinion. So keep watching. The flood videos are coming up very soon. Lils wrote, I enjoy listening to you. Bless you. I feel sorry for you. I can only stomach about an hour of me. No, I'm joking. Interesting stuff. A lot more. This is Peter's. A lot more than just the lines. That's to do with the Nazca Lines. Absolutely, Peter. Just scrolling down. Are there more sightings in the UK during the day or at night? Now, it's a good question. Back in the day, back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, there were sightings during the day and night. Now, the reason why we don't see so many sightings now is they have managed to cloak their ships. And even the TR-3B tries to cloak itself, bless it. Which is the American UFO that they use, the triangular one. But they have now managed, different species have managed to cloak their ship. Now, whether it's cloaking or whether it's just, warping or whatever they're doing, you can only see it under certain conditions. And you need a military grade, the latest military grade, I think it's level 3, night vision goggles to be able to see some of these craft. And if you don't have that, even a camera phone with night vision can't see it. So they've really ramped up their technology. So now we can't hardly see any of the crafts flying around. So looking out at night or during the day, you won't see it unless it's an older craft or one that they want you to see. So going back to the question, as nighttime during daytime. Night abductions normally happen about 3 o'clock at night in the morning, so to speak. So if it's an abduction, then it would be around 3 o'clock our our time. If it's just a UFO flying around, then they're seen during the day as well, or used to be seen during the day. But it's become a lot harder to see them. But like I say in the beginning of the video, a lot more UFOs are now really in the last sort of 6 months have been ramped up. People can see them a lot more different types and stuff. So there's a reason that we've been able to see them now, and whether that's to do with what's going on in the world right now, or whether that's to do with the Project Blue Beam, which is the fake military invasion that will get us all to go into these, for want of a better word, concentration camps that they've been building and built. So yeah, so either, but if you really want to see craft, you'll need to get those military grade night vision goggles. What started my research? Good question. When I spoke to my mum about this fairly recently. When I was, I think, 5 or 6, my mum read a newspaper story out, and bearing in mind this is back in the days when we had a coal fire in the front room, and my mum read out a story in the newspaper, and she's reading it, and basically it was this couple in the UK. The old man, they were an elderly couple. He went out the back garden and he had logs up against his window, back window, to go and stoke the fire, make the fire in their house. Anyway, he went out the back garden and was never seen again. It just disappeared, literally off the face of the earth. And that intrigued the crap out of me. I was thinking, whoa, what's going on? And then over time, I mean, they don't talk about them so much now, but there was a thing called spontaneous combustion. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, where people would suddenly be set on fire or catch on fire. And that intrigued me to no end. I was like, well, hang on a minute, how's that work? And I'd look into as much as I could on, how their slippers were still there, not burnt and things like that. And I'm like, no, that's illogical. What's going on here? So yeah, that sort of things really set my imagination on fire, and I went into research. Lils wrote, appreciate you sharing, you're more than welcome. Peaches wrote, what should take on Nazca Lines? Again, if you wouldn't mind holding off and watching the videos. Just scroll down. What's your opinion on the Sphinx and the hidden chambers? That's from Peach. Good question. Okay, so the hidden chambers are supposedly under its paw. Lots of people have said that, even Edgar Casey. If you don't know who he is, he's what they call the sleeping prophet. He was, I think, in the 20s to 40s, 1920s to 40s, if I remember correctly, and he could contact the dead and did so very well. In fact, so accurate on many occasions that they started writing down all of his details. And a couple of times he said about the Hall of Records, which was under the Sphinx, and I think it was a right paw. Now, researchers have tried to go in there, and they did find, believe it or not, they were, I think in the 80s, there was a group of researchers. You can actually see the video online. They were allowed to drill with a long drill piece underneath the paw to see if there was any kind of cavern underneath there. Now, obviously, this is 80s technology. Now we can have LiDAR and stuff like that. But they believed there was something there. But obviously, then as soon as they sort of think that there was something there, then the antiquities people in Egypt said, okay, that's enough now, stop. So if there was anything there, it would have long been gone and probably covered up. Now the military, whether it's the Egyptian military or the American military, someone would have went in there, especially after you got people like Edgar Casey, who was quite well known in the States, saying that would have been the first thing the military would have done. They would have went straight in there and looked for it. Same reason that they went into Afghanistan, Iraq for the Stargate, supposedly. So they'll do whatever it takes to find that technology if it's an alien technology than letting it get in the hands of someone else. So if there was a secret chamber, we'll never know now because the military would have been in there and took everything. So that's really sad, but it's true. There's no way they would leave it lying there. And DK has wrote, in terms of the quarantine, how does it work? So basically, at some point, probably in the last 100,000 years, um, so basically, there's many groups of aliens out there, and they've got an alliance together, and they sort of fight off. And it sounds like Star Wars, doesn't it? And they fight off the other races, such as the Draconians and stuff. So you got a group of good aliens, and they want to protect various planets, not just Earth. There's other planets out there that have got similar evolved people like us. That, when I say people, similar evolved whatever's on their planet, and they're watching over them, and they don't let any other races come in and sort of start attacking them or wiping them out or turning them into slaves. So this was obviously happened after the Anunnaki had already created us. So the story goes that the council of aliens are protecting us in a quarantine. So Earth is under quarantine under this alliance. But as I say, there's some races that try and contact us and help us telepathically. There's some that go in and get a contract or a treaty with us, so that bypasses the, and the treaty allows them to take people away and abduct them. So that bypasses the quarantine, because if if Earth is allowing that to happen, then there's nothing the quarantine can do about that. So that's the quarantine. There is an expiry date on the quarantine, apparently. Now, I'd heard one person say that the quarantine had expired, but I would like to think, and I pray that the quarantine's still here, but that doesn't stop us destroying ourselves or depopulating our own kind, e.g. World War II and anything that's coming up in the future. That doesn't stop the alliance from coming in. They can't come in and just say, hang on guys, just don't be stupid, stop doing what you're doing now. And that doesn't work like that. It's just stopping other aliens coming in and doing stuff. Obviously, as I say, there's some clever aliens that are surreptitiously doing stuff behind the scenes. Anything about La Palma? I'm not sure. That was Lil wrote that. I'm not sure what that is. Sorry. I might know it under a different name or something. I don't recall what that is. Sorry. Killertrons wrote, is La Palma volcano something to worry about? Okay. So, with regards to volcanoes, you've probably seen or heard that the UFOs fly around volcanoes a lot. And so, for example, in Mount Teide in Spain, UFOs are flying around there all the time. In fact, if you actually go up, there's a little observation tower right near the top of Mount Teide. I've actually been there, and I spoke to the tour guide, and I said, what's that for? And then I was just talking to him about the UFOs and stuff, and he says, look, I can't say. He says, but you're on the right track. So where there's this observation tower, it's not actually for what they say it's for. It's not for, studying whether the volcano is going to go off. It's to study the UFOs that are coming over. And some UFOs have gone deep into a volcano that's active. It's actually gone. There's video footage of volcanoes. Like these cameras that are set up, live cameras that just constantly record or show a live stream of a volcano, and then if they're lucky or unlucky, should the word be, that the volcano goes off, then along comes a bloody UFO and flies straight into it. Crazy. And that's, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So I don't think we're going to have any absolute major catastrophes with volcanoes. I mean, yes, we have eruptions, but I think the aliens will try and stop that somehow. I know I've already said they don't stop us, but the they're interested in the planet as well. So they're not going to let the planet destroy. They're not going to. That's the same reason for the nuclear weapons. They won't let us destroy the planet. They don't care whether we destroy ourselves as such, but they're not going to let us destroy the planet because the planet's a resource for them as well as all the other aliens out there. Peaches wrote, did you look into the presentation at New Horizons since Suzanne's Blackpool? I have, but then I started to think about it would have to be after Christmas, and then with all these lockdowns and everything, they probably will lock us down for no reason whatsoever, let's be honest. So I've spoke to a couple of people about it as well. So it's not something that I've not ruled out. It's just I think we're going to have to get through this next lockdown, which unfortunately, in my opinion, from my research, will probably be the permanent lockdown that they put us in. I've always said there'll be three main lockdowns, and then the third one we don't come out of. That'll be the end of it. In other words, they'll switch what they need to switch on, and then yeah. So, but I would love to. Camco's wrote, what's your thought on Antarctica aliens? So I have covered that. I don't know how long I've been going on this live chat for. Normally I do an hour. So if you're interested, I'll stick this up probably tomorrow night, and I've covered that and Admiral Byrd, etc. on this live chat. So forgive me for not repeating it now. DK, why don't they protect us from the ones in control? Again, same reason, they're not allowed to interfere with our what we're doing to each other. It's a prime directive, I guess, if you want to call it that. I mean, the planet, yes, they will look after the planet, and they're trying. In fact, the treaty goes that they were supposed to be given technology to the aliens were supposed to be given technology to Eisenhower, etc., in return for kidnapping, for want of a better word, abducting people and experimenting on them. And one of the technologies they were supposed to give us was to be able to clean up our oceans, which apparently they never did give us. But prior to that, there was another race that was supposed to be had a meeting with Eisenhower. And it was probably the Palladians or the Nordics, from what I gather, and they offered spiritual enlightenment, etc., and to be able to help clean the planet up. Giving us the technology to help clean the planet up. In return, we had to disarm our nuclear weapons, and of course, Eisenhower, being a military person, said no. And then a couple of weeks later, the other aliens came down and offered us a different deal where we keep the nuclear weapons, but they abduct people, and Eisenhower said yes, which is really annoying because you've got one person in control of our future, and he said yes because he's a greedy sod. I would rather went for the Enlightenment type thing, but I guess back then the Americans were worried about the Russians and Germans and whoever else, and Chinese and Japan, and so I can kind of see why they would want to keep the nukes, but it's a sad. Did the aliens build the pyramids? Yes. The Welsh Life wrote, yes, they did. They used sound wave technology, which we're only just getting to grips with now. Michael Tellinger explains how sound frequencies would have moved the blocks, if you're interested. So, yes. Whereabouts was Atlantis? I don't know. Peaches asked. I don't know. Various different places. Some say it was between Malta, Baltic Strait. Loads of different people have come up with loads of different answers to where Atlantis was. That's even if it was real. Obviously, you've got to remember that was Plato talking about it from a friend of his that had gone to Egypt, that was told by a priest that had heard the story from a couple of thousand years prior. So it's a lot of hearsay. So it's hard to say whether or not there was really an Atlantis. So, and even if there was an Atlantis, where would it have been? Some people say it could have just been an actual ship craft, and instead of it sinking, the next day it floated up. And of course, the story goes that it sank because it's not there anymore. But it could have just left. It could have been a massive round ship, because the description was it's round. and it could have just left Earth. So it's just with Atlantis, there's too much pinning on one or two stories of Atlantis to get a real accurate thing. I know that supposedly the priest said that there was some writing about Atlantis, which is how he knew about it in Egypt. But and it wasn't actually called Atlantis; there was another name for it. But of course, we called it Atlantis because we thought it was in the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. There was another name for it. So there is possibly some texts out there or hieroglyphs of this, which is how the real name, is out there. But other than that, there's very little to go on, and that's why you got so many people, coming up with different places where it could be. Peaches wrote, brilliant. I think it could be all over for lockdowns by March. Yeah, they said that last year. Sorry, I know that if you're from the UK, you'll probably see the latest released, secretive released information saying by March we're going to be out of the lockdown. They're doing that to give us the hope, but it's not going to be. And again, you got to remember what they said last time. They said, "Oh, 1 jab, 2 jabs, 6 jabs, and it'll all be over." And now it's babies want the jabs, and they're just moving the goalposts, and they're just keeping us on these tender hooks so we don't see the bigger picture. Oh, by March it'll be all right. So you don't have to look over this way at what we're doing with 5G. All that kind of stuff. But once you realise what they're doing, it makes so much sense. You can just read between the lines. Are ghosts and aliens related to each other? No, but they do know each other. I know it sounds stupid, but there's there's people out there such as Major Ed Dames, who was or is a remote viewer who has seen. This is just one of many. I'm just using this one as an example. Sorry, I'm getting tired now. My throat's dry, so I might have to end soon. But he saw aliens carrying light beings, so they know each other. And Bigfoot has been seen carrying a light orb. So they're not related to each other, but they work with each other. And in fact, the Council of Aliens that I was talking about earlier supposedly have the light beings obviously in it, because they're the ones that sends the other light beings down. But other different types of aliens are in that council. So yes, they do know each other. The Welsh Life wrote, "What about High Brazil?" So it's an island off of Ireland, I think it is, a small island off of Ireland or Scotland, and it supposedly disappears and comes back. I have done some live chats on, or maybe I think I've done one live chat on High Brazil. Fascinating story to it, but I'm now kind of running out of time. Really, I want to go and get a drink. My throat is so dry. Anyone interested in High Brazil, go Google it. It's really, really interesting. So I'm just going to, because I can see 30 messages there, so forgive me. I'm just going to try and whiz through these now. How far do you think we are from being aliens? How far do you think we are from being the aliens to another planet like us? Well, if you class the Anunnaki as aliens, and if you believe in them, then very near, they're in our solar system. They're the 12th planet. If not, then Alpha Centauri supposedly got some. Orion's got obviously the aliens, Zeta Reticuli, Draconis, which is another star system. So they're around. They have to go through these wormhole type effects to get here. Even their craft that they can do at their speed still needs to use this wormhole effect that they do go through. They've said that. So, and it still takes them some time to get here. Like the Zetas took, I think it was about 6 months to get here, because they were supposed to have a long story, but they're supposed to meet up after one of the Zetas was held J-Rod, they called him. And they set up this is the whole thing of this Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they set up a meeting with, and they done an exchange, and it's called Project Serpo for real. But anyway, so they took cut a long story short, they took 6 months to get here. So that's why they set up bases on the moon, which makes sense. Moon Witches wrote, "Hi, how are you this evening?" I'm fine. My throat's now getting a bit dry, but I should have had a drink next week. What's your thought on hybrid people? Yes, I think they're here. These are hybrids of, I'm talking about greys, for example, as opposed to, they're here. I think there might be a nefarious reason that they're here, but jury's still out on that one. Sorry for being brief now, because I'm just trying to run on. Does the government, Bryce has wrote, does the government implant secret evidence in The Simpsons in the TV show? It's possible, totally possible, because like I've mentioned before, the radio broadcast by Orson Welles, World of Worlds, was supposedly a military planned thing, and so was the film The Day the Earth Stood Still, which was funded by the military. So there's things out there that they're doing to try and, I mean, X-Files is a fantastic example. There's so many things in X-Files that are true. So, and for some reason there was 33 messages, and now it says none. What did I do there? So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there was 30 something messages, and now there's none. Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Didn't mean to get rid of it. If I did, Cam Coes wrote off psychics and aliens related. No, I don't recall any psychics ever. Well, they have actually, like the Palladians and things. Apparently, they have had Palladians go through a psychic. So they're not related as such, but they can talk through them. Have you had a close encounter of the fourth kind? I think I might have, but it's very difficult to say. I'm also getting tired now. Sorry, my brain's been overdrive. And I've done loads of videos that's on my drafts, so all day I've been doing alien stuff. What species of aliens has a base on the moon, and is it on the dark side? Yes, it is. However, there's some craters that on the front-facing side that you can actually the alien craft go in that way. But yeah, generally it's on the dark side of the moon, which makes you wonder why they did it on the dark side of the moon if they've been there for millions of years or hundreds of, at least thousands of years, because we never had the technology to even look at the moon that clearly. So either they foresaw what was going to happen, or they just preferred the dark side of the moon because it doesn't, it's not so hot. I'd probably go along with the dark side of the moon, not so hot, because there's no point in hiding from people that can't see you, or dinosaurs if they were there that long. And what types of creatures are on there? You've got Nazis, Americans, little greys, tall whites, probably the praying mantises. You may have some humanoid type ones on there as well, such as possibly the Nordics. I don't think the Palladians are. But the descriptions that come across are more Nordic, wearing capes and things. So if World War III broke out, Bryce has wrote, where would it start out and which countries would be involved? If it was nukes, I don't think it would get very far, just because of the aliens have already proved time and time again that they will take out nukes, because nukes actually also destroy the spirits, the entities, the light orbs, as well as ruining the planet for everyone. In fact, when the disaster of the what was the power plant meltdown? Sorry, I'm tired. I'm trying to remember the name of it. You know, the last power plant, China, was it Fukushima maybe? Um, a day after that exploded with radiation, a new UFO was seen in there, and then the radiation went down by 80%. So they don't want us to have radiation on this planet because it's no good for them. So um, from that point of view, World War Three. The only other reason why I think there might be a World War Three is another country has figured out what's going on and doesn't want to be part of that. And the way to stop that would be to start a fight. If you catch my drift on where I'm going with that. Um, have you seen an alien in person? Which, if so, which species? So, cut a long story short, I was in Tenerife on my own. Not Tenerife. What was it? Tunisia. Sorry, Tunisia. I was on a business meeting. Second night in a hotel. Lying there. Phone went. It was 12 o'clock. Looked at the text. It was a work text. Put the phone down. And then I heard myself saying, "Please, please, please, leave me alone. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me." And I was like, I was asleep, and I was hearing myself say this. I couldn't. It's really weird. And then I kind of opened my eye, and what I thought was a little figure beside me, and I couldn't move my arm. My arm was hanging out the edge of the bed. Couldn't move, and then I realised that obviously whatever I was saying has now stopped, where I was begging it to not hurt me. Um, from what I remember, it walked off towards towards the end of the bed and then round the corner towards the toilet, and there was another figure there that walked off, and then my arm sprang up. So obviously I was trying to lift my arm up, but I was paralysed. It could have been sleep paralysis, I'll give you that, but my arm sprang up, and I was like, oh my god, my god, my god. I sat up. The first thing I'd done, I knew what to do. I looked at my clock on my phone. I thought, how long was I out for? What the hell just happened? And it was 2 minutes past 12. And I thought to myself, there's no way I would have got into an REM sleep in 2 minutes. I possibly could have. Um, so that's why I say I'm unsure. I don't really want to go to a hypnotist because I never wanted ever to go to a hypnotist. But even then, even if I did, it was only a 2 minute thing. Now I did ask. I texted everyone that there and then. Obviously, I checked around the corner; they weren't there. I texted all my people back here in the UK, and I said, "Listen, can you look out for any reports of a UFO over this particular hotel?" There wasn't, but a couple of years later, one of the people that I'd asked found some information. Obviously, no one reported it there and then, but it must have been a couple of weeks after that. The newspapers started reporting it. And as I say, a couple of years later, he points me to this article about this UFO that was over the hotel at that time. So I don't know. I don't know. Is it because I'm constantly thinking of them, and that's there's people out there that like Dr. Stephen Greer that take people on these um, I don't know what expedition, whatever you want to call it, where they actually asked, they'll stand out in a night sky and they'll ask the UFO to show itself, and they'll just ask it in their head. So, if that was a real thing that happened to me, is it because I'm constantly thinking of aliens, in which case they visited me? I don't know, or I might have just been my over imagination on aliens could have done that. So that's why I say I don't know for sure. But if it was any, it would have been little greys, but it was very dark. I mean, it was 12 o'clock and the curtains were shut, so it was really dark. But I could see silhouettes. Did you listen to the Sync Sonic album? No. I will put that as a reminder once I get off this chat. Sorry. Do you think some people are more susceptible to visits from aliens? So after I've just said that, yes, I do. It's the same as Bigfoots. If you have the right intentions, apparently, Bigfoots will show themselves to you. If you go there with a gun, you ain't gonna see a Bigfoot. And I think the same thing goes with this. I think the people that are like the Palladians that are contacting the people they're doing so because they believe those people are the right people to do it. And I'll just give you one example. There was a grey, and I'm guessing this was an Orion grey, one of the robot type ones, or android, should I say. So the story goes that there was a guy woke up, he was lying on his couch in the States. Normally my stories are States based because I can't speak any other language, so to hear stories, there's other stories out there, so anyway, this guy's lying he wakes up and there's a freaking little alien in his house. They normally come in twos, you don't hardly ever get them on their own. Anyway, he wakes up, sees this little bloody grey, and like didn't know what to do, runs for a gun. I think there's probably another grey in the house somewhere, but obviously weren't looking for it. Gets the gun, but he hears in a voice in his head saying, "You will not use that," and that was obviously the little grey saying that. Anyway, he turns around, points his gun at the little grey, and he doesn't shoot. And then the grey says, "Put the gun down." He wasn't telling him what to do. He was advising, the grey was advising him because he knew what kind of character the person was. He knew he's not a killer. So that answers hopefully your question, is that if you've got the right mindset and you're not someone that will want to hurt them, then yeah, you'll probably be all right. I does the Lynn Burrows wrote, "I don't trust hypnosis." No, I don't trust what they can do to you while you're under. I'd hate to think what they can get out of you or whatever. Not that I've got any secret skeletons in my closet, but I just wouldn't want them to make me do something. I always want to feel like I'm in control. Their Limbos wrote, "I had a similar experience in bed when I was 18." Oh, that's interesting. Because after I'd done my business there, and I came back, I started to research about the telepathic descriptions that people give when they get abducted, and apparently the same thing happens. They can actually, they're sort of like two versions of themselves. They can hear themselves talking. It's really weird. So maybe I don't know. Lils wrote, "I think I did 2 years ago." That's, yeah. I mean, I'd love to know more, but I'm running out of time. I kind of wanted to watch that Shang-Chi as well, which I've got on TV now. Sorry, I'm just reading there. Lingbo has wrote, could have been hypnotic suggestion. I thought it was a ghost. Well, it could have been a ghost. It seems to be the tall greys who do the abductions and the experiments. Yeah, it is. But it's the little greys, they're the worker bees that grab them. But the sometimes the praying mantises are behind the tall ones as well. In other words, they're the smarter ones telling everyone what to do. One has wrote, "I 100% agree with you. That's very interesting." And what are the cattle mutilations for? It's a good question, Peach. And this will probably be my last answer. Sorry, because I've got that film I want to watch as well as I need a cup of tea now. Cattle mutilations. Now, blood plasma is one part of it. So supposedly the little greys, the android ones, the Orion ones, ingest blood plasma. So that's the first reason that it's they take the blood, supposedly, and that's as food for them. Second reason is they implant something into a cattle. So they take a cattle away, and this has been seen by ranchers. They'll see the horse being taken up, or a cow, and later on it's dropped back down. In fact, there's a video, I think I showed a clip of one where it was literally slammed right through the roof of a cattle barn thing. So if you haven't seen that, go watch my videos. Fascinating. Poor cow. But so they take it once, they inject it with whatever they're doing, whatever experiment it is that they're up to, and it's just more than, it's not just one experiment. They obviously are doing various different things. There's the sexual organs, the jaw, various parts of their body taken out later on. So whatever it is incubates in the cattle, and then later on they pick that cattle back up, um, surgically remove the bits that they require that's now incubated, whatever it is, and then they drop the cow back down dead on the ground. And because they drop it down and it's come through the beam, and the poor cow, from what I understand, is still alive when they actually drain the blood out of it, because there's been people that's been standing there, that they've been abducted and they've been frozen, and they're standing there looking at this poor cow as this blood's being sucked out of them, every last drop of the blood, which would explain why there's never any blood around the cattle. So so whatever it is, but they don't just do cattle. Over here in the UK, they do. I'm just using this one as an example, but cats. There was a huge spate of cats disappearing and then reappearing. Surgically cut many weeks later in exactly the same place. No one was ever found. Of course, police said it was a cat killer, and they called it the Croydon cat killer. But there was never ever any evidence of a cat killer whatsoever, and eventually it stopped doing it. And there was multiple cases as well at the same time that the cats had gone missing. So in different locations in Croydon, which is London-ish. So, if it was a cat killer, he would have had to have done multiple at the same time, which means there would have been multiple cat killers, and then they would have had to come back and put the cat in, either exactly the same place where it went missing or around that area. So, I don't think it was a cat killer. So, but they're obviously experimenting or using these animals for some reason or other, and to them, they're expendable. You could say, well, hang on a minute, why do they drop the cows back? Because obviously, a lot of people used to say it was military that was taking them. But let's be honest, the military could have just had a cattle farm somewhere, and they would never need to do this. Men in black have turned up after to talk to ranchers after the cattle has been returned back and things like that. So it's not the military; it's obviously aliens doing it. And people, like I say, ranchers have seen cows getting sucked right up during the day and night. So now I know people's put up cameras to try and capture this, but like I say before, if you've listened to the beginning of this, you'll see that the craft now are so clever that they can avoid being seen on cameras, and even with the naked eye, you need a special night vision camera goggles, which are military grade ones. So that's why you won't see what's going on, really. So I'm going to have to shoot now because I want to go see that film. And where is the proof of the Anunnaki? Where did this name come from? The name is a translation by Zachariah Sitchin, really, but there is other people. They all come with the same sort of name, which is supposedly those from heaven who came to earth, but heaven is space, so those from space that came to earth. But the Anunnaki is not the real race name. That's not their race name, because no one would call themselves those from heaven who came to earth. That's just what we've ended up calling them. But their real race name is the Elohim. And I know people that's religious will go, no, it's not, that's the God's name. But you look back at the original text, forget the Bible for a moment, go back further and look where the Bible copied it from, and they talk about the Elohim, which is the Anunnaki, all the time. They're saying the Elohim did this, the Elohim did that, and if we went to another planet, they'd be saying the humans did this, the humans did that. It's no different. So hopefully that all makes sense. Thank you to everyone that's listened. I'm going to shoot off now and go watch that Chang Chai. Hopefully it's a good movie. I'll probably do a live tomorrow at noon for anyone that's interested in asking more questions. But once again, thank you for some excellent questions, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye.